Latest weather models continue to indicate a bombing cyclone off the mid-Atlantic coast that dumps feet of snowfall across parts of the mid-Atlantic into the Northeast. Who will see feet of snow with this winter storm? And how strong will those winds get with this bombing cyclone? Welcome back, everyone. It is your host, David Schlotthauer, here on Tuesday, January 27th, 2026. I hope you all are having a great day. Now, let's take a look at that latest GFS model for Saturday morning on the 31st day of January 2026. And as we look here, there's definitely a light to moderate band of snowfall overspreading much of North Carolina into Virginia, West Virginia, and Kentucky. But the system is going to undergo explosive baroclinic deepening as colder air coming in and out of the north meets warm air coming in out of the south. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a bombing snowstorm off the mid-Atlantic coast by the time we go into Saturday night into Sunday morning. And you can see that here. By Saturday afternoon into the evening hours, this system is going to bomb explosively out and produce some very, very heavy snowfall across Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, including for West Virginia, and parts of the Appalachians, including for far eastern Tennessee, for Saturday afternoon into the evening hours. And as we ring in the first day of February 2026, you can see here some very heavy snowfall is expected with a chance of blizzard conditions. Yeah, I'm not lying when I say blizzard conditions, because this is going to produce some very enormous wind gusts, and that's going to lead to blowing snow, drifting snow as well, and lead to blizzard conditions. And this continues all the way into Sunday morning on the first day of February. And then whether or not does this get close to the Northeast coast will be largely dependent on exactly how close this low gets. If it tracks a lot closer somewhere like this, much more heavier snowfall can be expected here across basically northern New England, much of New England, as well as downtown New York, versus if the low remains further offshore here, this should brush a lot of the areas and bring much lesser snowfall totals. So now when we compare this to the Canadian model for nearly the same time frame, you can see here on the map that it is still showing that light to moderate snowfall band like the GFS is showing. So we have pretty good agreement here in about 4 days that snow will be a problem over the Carolinas, including for the Appalachians for Saturday morning. But whether or not will this actually bomb out, it's looking a little more likely that will happen. But where will that happen is going to be the big question mark in this video. But you can see here by Saturday night into Sunday morning, moderate to heavy snowfall is going to happen here as we get a lot of baroclinic ascent here and isentropic lift up and over the colder air as moisture gets flung all the way around and produces some pretty good heavy snowfall overnight Saturday into Sunday on the first day of February. And this continues to be a huge issue as we go throughout the day on Sunday over the Northeast. Again, how close will this get to the Northeast coast is going to be a big question mark. Again, if this gets a lot closer, more snowfall totals. If this is a lot further offshore, no impacts at all, although there will be some gusty winds still, but no snowfall if it's much further offshore. So this is going to be an area that we really need to watch very closely in subsequent model runs, because yeah, it could mean the difference between 2 to 3 feet of snowfall and no snow at all. Now, what does a European model think about this winter storm? Well, let's take a look at that for Saturday morning, and it does not have as much of a widespread swath of light to moderate snowfall across the same areas that the GFS and the Canadian model indicated, but it does show a little bit of snowfall. So there is a pretty good amount of agreement here that the Carolinas will see snow Saturday morning. Yeah, this is literally one of the first winter storms that you have seen that actually dumped snow for your area, which is great news. A lot of you have been hoping for some snow this winter, and it looks like it's going to come to pass here based on our last three or most of our global models. Now, the difference with the European model is it does keep the snow a lot further to the south here, so impacting, again, the Carolinas, like Wilmington, North Carolina, with light to moderate snowfall for Saturday night into Sunday morning, so nearly the same time frame. And the difference with this model is it is a lot further offshore here, and you can see what makes the difference here. With the low that's over here, you're not getting any impacts at all with this winter storm for the Northeast, or even perhaps for Maryland, Delaware, or New Jersey, versus if we go back in time and look at the GFS, look at the difference. That low track is a lot closer on the GFS than what the European model is indicating here, which means lesser impacts on the Euro overall with this snowstorm because of how far south or how far offshore the low is. And then you can see by the time we go into early next week, it's like a winter storm never even happened in the first place. So the big question mark is, who is going to see feet of snowfall with this bombing nor'easter-like cyclone off the mid-Atlantic for Sunday? So here's a look at the latest snowfall totals from the 12Z GFS model, and it's painting a pretty aggressive picture with anywhere between 24 to 36 inches of snowfall in a wide swath from central North Carolina into central and eastern Virginia into Maryland and Delaware. Believe it or not, where some areas like Easton, Maryland could get up to 48 to 60 inches of snowfall if the trend on the GFS continues, with up to 18 to 24 inches of snowfall across parts of Bristol, Tennessee, including for the Appalachians out of this winter storm alone, with the Northeast only getting about an inch or two of snow. Now compare that to the Canadian model. The 12Z output shows a lot lesser snowfall totals, which is why I don't believe with what the GFS is painting a picture of right now, because it's the most aggressive outlier model, but that's why we look at different models. This model on the Canadian is painting a picture of about 12 to 18 inches of snowfall across the Carolinas, Virginia, Delaware, Maryland, as well as New Jersey, up across the northeast coast of Massachusetts, Rhode Island, as well as Nantucket, including for Cape Cod and Boston, Massachusetts, with maybe only up to 6 or so inches of snowfall over the Appalachians. Now, the latest 12Z European deterministic model is the least most aggressive, so it's on the other end of the scale, well opposite of the GFS model, only showing anywhere between 3 to 6 inches of snowfall across North Carolina, with some areas up to almost a foot there near Cape Hatteras, as well as Wilmington, North Carolina. But the Appalachians here, anywhere between 1 to 3 inches of snowfall, so far lesser than what the last couple of models that we looked at, and no snow at all for the Northeast. If anything, maybe a dusting at most on the European model is what it's showing, but otherwise, no snow at all here over Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware, and even New Jersey, unfortunately, on the European model. Now, when we blend all of our global computer models together here and get a rough estimate on exactly how much snowfall you could see here, looking at the national blend of models here, painting a pretty aggressive picture with anywhere between 6 to 12 inches right along the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic coast here, from, say, North Carolina into eastern Virginia, as well as Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, downtown New York into Massachusetts, as well as Connecticut, including for parts of Maine, New Hampshire as well, with some localized areas here roughly over a foot to maybe a foot and a half of snowfall potentially with this winter storm. So I'm leaning more towards the Canadian and the GFS model in this scenario than what the European model is showing, because I believe the Euro is a bit of an outlier. Not that it won't show a bombing cyclone, but the system is not as strong up here in the Northeast versus down here in the Carolinas, where there's a little bit more consistency with that output. Now, a big weather hazard with this winter storm that bombs out like this along the eastern seaboard of the mid-Atlantic is the damaging winds that come with a nor'easter like this, because the pressure drops very fast. You tighten the pressure gradient, and that leads to ferocious offshore winds here. And take a look at these wind gusts according to the latest GFS model run here. Anywhere between 45 to 55 miles an hour, with perhaps almost up to 60 miles an hour across much of eastern Maryland. So that's like Easton, Maryland, down to the south here. Delaware could get up to 60 mile an hour wind gusts, including the Appalachians here, which could get wind gusts between 60 to 80 miles an hour coming offshore here, and wind gusts at the surface here in the Carolinas anywhere between 35 to 45 miles an hour, with Atlanta getting up to 40 mile an hour wind gusts, and the Northeast here like Pennsylvania anywhere between 45 to maybe 55 miles an hour, especially if the system gets a little closer. You can see Cape Cod here could get wind gusts between 55 to 70 miles per hour with this type of winter storm. Even so, you don't get the heaviest snowfall as what some other models are showing. So now the question is, how likely will a bombing cyclone happen off the mid-Atlantic coast of the United States on Sunday morning? Well, when we look here at the latest GEFS ensemble forecast, basically a blend of the average, we can basically see this bowling ball anomalous area of lower pressure or lower heights than normal, with record low heights down here in the Carolinas, indicating there is very high unusual confidence that a very deep upper level wave is going to exist in this particular area as it gets kind of cut off from the overall polar jet stream up here. And so what you end up seeing here is a very strong trough, very high confidence of a system that bombs out over the mid-Atlantic. Now, when we look at the latest EPS, which stands for European Ensemble Prediction System, or Ensemble Prediction System for short, we can see not as much of a very amplified reflection here compared to the GEFS. See the difference there? There's definitely a notable difference, and that is why I'm leaning more towards the GFS, not hoping for a big storm, but the GFS seems to handle things a little bit more, especially with our last winter storm with that big ice storm. The Euro ensemble indicated big time ice amounts across southern Missouri into northern Arkansas. That never ended up happening, and the GFS seemed to handle it a lot better than the European model. Not saying that the European model is wrong here, but it is worth noting, because if the GFS comes to pass, that's how you get big time snowfall totals here along the mid-Atlantic coast of Maryland into Virginia. Now, with a very amplified meridional wave-like pattern across the United States that continues due to a very negative AO pattern that remains in place, this is going to send a lot more colder air further south than what we just recently experienced, which, by the way, it's still very cold in many areas, just not as cold as it was yesterday and the day before. So looking at the European model here really quickly, you can see just how cold it's going to be. And these are your wind chill forecast values here for Saturday morning, where wind chill values are going to be anywhere between -5 to -20 degrees in many areas, including for the Northeast here. So brace yourself. If you're not getting the snow, you're going to get the very cold, dangerous temperatures that come with an Arctic air mass due to gusty winds. And that's going to continue all the way into Sunday morning, where your wind chill values here for the Northeast are going to be extremely dangerous, between -15 to -25 degrees below zero, and then more colder air will follow behind this. But anyways, if you did find this video very helpful, detailed, informative, and life-saving, please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, folks. It really, really means a lot. We are very, very close to 70,000 subscribers, and I couldn't do this without all of your guys' generosity and support here on the channel. Boy, can't wait to hit 100,000 subscribers, believe it or not. The goal is to reach that by the end of this year after hurricane season. So again, if you all have not subscribed to the channel and hit that like button and hit that bell icon, please consider doing so right now after watching this video. As always, have a great day, and I'll be back with you more tomorrow with another weather forecast.